wasn't good enough to do what God was calling me to do. And I'm sure that there's been times where we all feel like that. Maybe we've done some things that got us into trouble, or whatever it is, and we get to those points where it's like, how can God use me? I'm not worthy of Him using me. And it took me some time to realize that God was just preparing me through my experiences for what He was going to show me later on in life. And so it came to the point where I was a junior in high school. How many of you are juniors? It will be the worst year of your high school, I have to tell you. I'm just going to be honest. Junior year is not fun. So it came to that point where I was 17 and everybody's like, okay, you have to start thinking about what you're going to do with the rest of your life. You have to start thinking about what college you want to go to. You have to start thinking about all these things and make all these crazy decisions. And it got so overwhelming because I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't know if I wanted to be in the ministry. I remember having a conversation with my dad and I said, well, I may want to go into the ministry. And he's like, Janine, I know that God has a calling on your life, but I can't tell you what that calling is. You have to seek God and find out what that calling is for your life. And then it was kind of funny. I had two teachers in high school, and they kind of had a bet over me. One was saying that I was going to be a lawyer, and one was saying that I was going to be in the medical field. And so they used to like argue with each other about which I was going to end up doing. And so I had like people pulling me in all different directions. And I'm sure you guys, if you're getting to that place in your life, you feel like people are trying to make the decisions for you. And so I started just asking God what He wanted me to do with my life. And I remember going to a youth convention. I was 17 years old. How many of you went to convention last year? It was awesome. You need to go this year. No, this coming year. I was at a youth convention, and they gave the altar call. And so, of course, me and to be like my friends, we all went down to the altar because that was like the cool thing to do. And we all went to the altar, just whatever. And I get down there, and the speaker all of a sudden says, I just feel like we need to pray for people who are called into full-time ministry. And I felt something in me, and I said, and I knew that it was God saying, that's you. And I said, no, that's not me. I said, I always said, because I came from a ministry family, I don't want to be a pastor. I don't want to be in the ministry. I don't want to marry a pastor. I don't want to have anything to do with it. And I said, God, I know that you're trying to tell me something. You've been trying to tell me something, but I'm not. That's not me. I don't want to go into the ministry. I'm not. It's not me. And God just said to me, no, you have to do this. And then the speaker said, if you feel like there's something tugging on your heart saying that you need to be in full-time ministry, you need to come up and be prayed for. And I don't know what it was. Obviously, well, it was God. But I literally felt like something was pulling on me. Like something was literally tugging on my heart. And I knew that God was saying to me, this is it. You need to surrender your life to me. Give everything to me. All your dreams, your hopes, whatever you thought you were going to do with your life, you have to give that to me. Surrender it to me. And so I did. I surrendered my life to Him, and I went and I got prayed for. And my youth pastor said to me, okay, so this means you're going to be a missionary, right? I never forgot what you told me when you were 14 years old. And I said, well, we'll see. We'll see. And so I kept applying to colleges and not really knowing what I was going to do. And so finally I made the decision that I was going to be a nurse. And so I applied to a bunch of schools, not knowing how God was going to provide, because if you don't know, pastors do not make a lot of money. And and so my dad's like, I don't know how we're going to pay for college, but just apply for schools. And I worked hard in high school to get good grades, even though some people thought it was favoritism, but no, I did my work. And I did my work and I got good grades, and thank God that He provided basically a full scholarship for me to go to Malloy. That was beyond a miracle. And so I started Malloy College as a nursing major, not realizing at all what I was getting myself into. I don't want to discourage people from being a nurse, but if you don't love it, then don't do it. It was a lot of hard work. And in my first semester, I had to take an art history class, which was not a class I wanted to take, but I had to because I was in the honors program. They picked my classes for me, whatever. And so one of my projects was to make a reliquary. Does anybody know what a reliquary is? A reliquary. No, I had no idea. I had no idea what it was either. None of us did. We're like, huh? No, we were all honor students, and none of us knew what a reliquary was. But anyway, it was basically we had to make something that represented, that was in honor of someone who had passed away. And so I remembered my experience with Soul, and I thought, okay, that's a good story. So I got a heart-shaped box, and I like put like pretty tiles around it, made it look nice, and then basically I made 3 holes in the top and made it look kind of ugly to represent obviously the 3 holes in her heart. And inside I put a locket with her picture in it. And so I get to class, and now I have to explain the whole story about what my reliquary is to 24 other college students. And so I told them the whole story of how I went on a missions trip and all these things. And it was such a cool experience for them to hear my testimony. And in that, that was the first time that I realized that God was saying to me, I can take your nursing career, and I can take your passion for missions, and you can put it together and make it into one call that I have on your life. And I never realized how God can take, you know, we talk about surrendering your dreams, and just because they're your dreams doesn't mean they're not God's dreams, but God's looking for you to say, I'm going to give them to you to use. And that's the most important thing, is that even if God can use our dreams, He can use the things that we have in our heart that we want to do with our life, but we have to be willing to say to Him, okay, God, I'm going to surrender those to you so that you can use it. And so sometimes, you know, I felt like I was running away from the call, but it wasn't that I was running away from the call. I was running right into the call. I just didn't see it at that moment. And a lot of times we feel like we're running away from what God has for us, but we're really running towards His plans for us. We just can't see that because we're not ready to surrender everything to Him. And so in my 4th and 5th semesters of college, they were literally the hardest times in my life. Within 6 weeks of each other, 2 of my aunts passed away of cancer. And I was beyond angry at God, because I couldn't understand how He let 2 people that I love so much go in such a short span of time. My one aunt had cancer for 20 years. We prayed for her for 20 years. And she would go into remission, and then she would get sick again, and she would go into remission, and she would get sick again. And it was a really tough situation. There was a lot of things that went on. in that whole situation. A lot of hurt and pain in that. And then after 7 years, my other aunt lost the battle to cancer, and it was really, really, really hard for me to understand how God could do that. We grow up in the church, and people say to us, God has a plan, God has a plan, God has a plan. And I just couldn't see what God's plan was.